morning. Well, I finally made it to the top. It's Sunday, the 7th of May. It's, I don't know, about 9:30 in the morning. It's a lovely morning, actually. The weather's been a bit on and off. And I thought I'd start this video by just bringing you bang up to date and up to the top of the mast. I'm at the mast top at the moment. As you can see, there's the top of there's the ends of our shrouds, look, and the beginning of the top mast. So I'm not going any further than here because I really need two people on deck, because from this point on there's no ratlins. At the moment, as you can see, I'm standing on the ratlins rather precariously. Well, it feels precarious anyway. I've got a couple of jobs actually here to do. Look, you can see how this crane is fouling on the blocks. I'm going to have to grind that off at some stage, but that's another job anyway. So I thought I'd just introduce you to a new perspective of the boat that you probably haven't seen before, to bring you up to date and tell you what we've got left to do before showing you what we have been doing. Down there at the on the foredeck at the bow of the boat, look, there's two big jobs I can see that we've got to do. Bowsprit net, so that we can get out and manage and look after and maintain all the bits on the bowsprit and the head sails, and the two anchor winches. So the various hawse pipes down into the chain lockers have got to be fitted, chain brought on board, and the two anchor winches themselves have got to be brought on and fitted. Not a huge job really. You will see from this video that actually the manual winch is one of the jobs that we've done, and that's all finished nicely. We had to do some bearing work on it. Mainly it was clean up and tidy and paint. It was nice actually to get that done. I love that anchor winch. It's really useful. You know, if all the electrics fail, at least you've got an anchor, and that's a good old heavy anchor for loose seabed states, you know, seaweedy and shaly sort of areas, because it works basically on weight, and it's a massive chain. I'll introduce you all that to later on. The electric one is being done at the moment. We're having that rewired so that it works both in forward and reverse. It only worked in raising the anchor up, it didn't allow it down. It will soon, and then that can be fitted. So that's that. Amidships down there, we've got what occurs to me is the steering, the exterior steering position, the helm, exterior helm position, and I've already been working on that. I'm reusing as much as possible of the old manual steering system, so the shaft and everything we're using, but it's slightly bent. I found it's bent, so Jamie's going to straighten that at some time in the coming weeks, and then I can fit it. I've put the bearings in place, I've got it all lined up. It looks as if it's going to work fine, so I'm really pleased about that. And that can then be fitted, and we can have our auto helm working, because that works off that shaft. More on that in the next episode, okay? Not this one, in the next episode. You can also see from here now, you've got a pretty good view of our nice solar panel. That worked brilliantly. That's a lovely coaming that Dominic made, and it works superb. You can't see that at all from ground level. You know, the only way you can actually see it is from up here. You can also see how with the gallows, the new gallows, we're able to push the boom and gaff sail off to one side or the other, depending on which the sun side is on. The only thing I've really got to do on that is to make a system for hinging it, so that we can actually hinge it up to face the sun, but that can be done during the year. You know, the jobs I'm telling you about now are the ones we absolutely have to get done before we can go sailing. We got a lot of other work which is in a list, which quite frankly we're going to do once we go sailing. So the jobs I'm describing now are the must-do jobs. At the stern, that takes us to the stern, and there's two obvious jobs there. That's the capping rail. You can see the capping rail around the stern isn't done yet. That shouldn't take too long. We're probably going to do that in a softwood pine rather than oak, because we can't afford the oak. So that's that job to be done. And the other job is the sheets, the main sheets that run on a rail across the top of the wheelhouse. So that's yet to be done. So those are the two big jobs at the stern, if you like, okay? So those are the major jobs to be done before we can get going. Those are the ones we're going to be concentrating on in the next few weeks. So I think it's time for me to go back down and get on with them. Oh, by the way, and of course the the job that we have been doing, which I'll show you something of in the episode you're about to watch now, is obviously the ratlins. That's how I'm up here in the first place. That's what I've been working on all week. This is only one side I've done, and I still have got 2 more steps to put on here, which hopefully I'll get on today. Then I've got the other side to do, and of course the mizzen. So that's one job. They take a long time, much longer than I thought, so we're probably not going to get away. Well, we won't get away by the end of May, which is what we've been aiming at, more like the end of June now. All of these jobs always take much longer than you think, and these ratlins in particular are very time consuming. So there you go, I'll go down now and crack on, keep on going on with these ratlins, and I hope you enjoyed that new perspective. I'll show you a little bit of round Gloucester Harbour from up here, slightly different perspective. Kathleen and May, Nielsen's boatyard. You've got Mascot over there in the dry dock. That's Nielsen's offices behind there where the red crane is. Another boat, Kahoo, there in dry dock. That's a drug running boat, former drug running boat, I think, which was impounded by the police and sold off. Nigel's lovely little boat down there, that square rig. And Tommy's tug, which is used for all sorts of jobs, moving boats around here. And then Nielsen's barge itself over in the background there. Flags flying, by the way, because we had a coronation apparently here yesterday. So I'll catch you later. Because we've been doing a lot of work in the last couple of weeks that's been very difficult to film for one reason or another. Jamie is working in here at the moment, and he's been doing our electrics. So first off, there's 3 things really. Complete new domestic bank of batteries. They are Victron batteries, AGMs. We've got 6 of those on the domestic side, and we've got 2 starter batteries as well. Jamie's done a lot of rewiring in here because it wasn't particularly good originally. You'll see in here, he's put new switches and things in. He's about to put a new switch on there. I think some stuff came the other day. There you go, look, new battery switch is going in there. What have we got here? Circuit breaker for something, bus bar, shunts, and another switch there. So there's bits and pieces are being replaced to update the boat. That one was corroded and it's also cracked. So that's gone in. He's put another isolator there, and that's a management system for the solar panel. So that's the other side, and that's the solar panel. I can show you that. We're really pleased with this. There you can see the combing. In fact, I'm going to have to step back to give you a proper view of this. This has worked out really well. There's the solar panel on top of the wheelhouse, and it looks fabulous. I don't particularly like solar panels, but it's not the panel I don't like, it's the way they're mounted most of the time. You know, they're normally up on a sort of spindly frame of some sort, and they look sort of like poorly fastened stuff on top of a roof rack on a car, so they really stand out, and we wanted to sort of make it blend in a bit more, and I think we've achieved that. Beautiful joints. The little mouse holes you see there is to allow water out, because you could never stop the water getting underneath that panel. And Dominic designed and built lovely little guttering inside the combing, you know, inside where the panels sit, so all the water runs through, and then the holes down into the mouse holes. Really beautiful job, and as you can see, it looks lovely, fits in there smashing. That's a 500 watt panel. It's a big panel, doesn't look at it from here, which was the whole point, I suppose. And then the new gallows there as well, Dominic. So that's the wiring. So there's the batteries, the solar panel, which we've put on, and you know, put all the wiring in, so that's all that's ready. One more very brief thing I'll show you before I go over, start work on the anchor winches I should say, is get some light in here, and that's the third part of our revised electronics. All a bit of a mess in here because of the work going on, and that's the inverter. We've got a small multi-plus compact Victron, I think that, what is that, 1600, so that should meet all our needs, and Jamie's put that in. You can see he's in the middle of wiring it at the moment. So that's you know, if I had the time, what I would do is actually dismantle the whole of this. It would be easier to clean it up. It would make a nice little project. It's a very good winch. It's a winch that I've just purchased, 90 meters of 3-inch, 3 1/8 inch chain, which cost me £2,000. So I've already invested in it in that sense. We have 2 anchors. We have a plough on the starboard side, and then we have this big lump on the port side. And what I like about the setup is that, this being manual, if everything else fails, if the electrics fail, for instance, or we have a problem with the starboard side plough, which is the one we'll use most of the time, we've got this fabulous backup. Being manual, you know, well, there's not a lot to go wrong, is there? It carries a much bigger chain than the plough, so it's a lot heavier. It's probably 4 times the weight of the chain on the plough, and it's got a very heavy 100 kilo anchor at the end of it. So we can use this in situations where the plough might not be ideal. In particular, you know, sort of surging, stormy conditions, I'm sure this would be the anchor of choice. So that's why I like this. That's why I've gone to the trouble of sort of restoring it as best I can. You will have noticed, I think I did film starting work on these 2 plates. Everything is sort of works in between these 2 big plates either side, and they're held in place by 4 big threaded studs. 1, 2, one that I'm just putting in, and the 4th one down there you can see, which I've already done. So you can see I've done 3. The originals, by the way, I don't know whether I did film them, but I can give you an idea of the sort of condition a little bit. You can see, you know, I had to cut them off because they weren't coming off on their own. This is loose in here, as you can see, and it needs bushing out. So what I'm going to do, now that I've got into this situation, I've realised that if I just take off the 4 nuts that I've put onto these new threaded bar, the whole of this panel, I think, should pull off. If it does, it means that I can get this smaller gear, this one here, which is a bit loose, that should just fall away as well. You know, I think it's retained at this end in a bearing, that's retained in that bearing, and it should, in theory, it should come off. If it does, what I'll do is get this bushed now, whilst I've got it in this state. It'll make a lot of sense, because it's, as far as I can see, it's the only thing wrong with the anchor winch. What I'm going to do now is just roll it slightly onto its side so I can better get to it, and I'm going to take off the 4 nuts that I've just put on. These should all stay in position, everything else should stay in position, and we'll see if this plate will come away. Okay, Battery's about to go on this camera, so I'll do this little bit and then I have to go and find another battery. I used to have 2 cameras, by the way, but I got fleeced on Facebook Marketplace. You need to be careful on that place. Basically, I bought a camera, paid by direct debit, and the guy didn't turn out to be genuine, just walked off with my 150 quid. Amazing. Anyway, that came off really nicely, and you can see now that I can get to the plate here, look, where I couldn't get to before, and I can dress that nicely ready for painting. I can also get to this big gear here and get that all nicely sorted. I did just briefly try pulling that off. Now it does move a little bit up until obviously here. This is all one piece, and that big nut there is presumably what holds it all together. So if I took that nut off, I could probably separate the whole lot. So that's as far as I'm going to go, because I really don't want to, I don't think I want to go down that avenue. I just don't have the time. I think it's going to have to be a project for the future. So if we could get this one tightened up, I think that'll do us, and we'll live with it. But you know, life's too short. There's so many other things I've got to get done. So I shall clean that up now with the wire brush on the grinder. Get that cleaned up. It'll take 5 minutes, and then I'll get some paint on it. So I'm just going to go off now and get those bits and pieces and a battery for the camera. See you in a bit. Good morning everyone, it's Friday 17th of March, and I've just brought you down into the yard to bring you up to date with progress on my restoration of our manual anchor winch, and there you can see it. And I'm actually paying the price for last week trying to rush this job. I painted it with a special primer for galvanized metal, and as you can see, a lot of it has come off. That's me scrubbing this morning, by the way, with soapy water and a brush, and I've wire brushed around certain areas. Some of that came off because soon after I painted it, it started raining, and that didn't help because it's a water-based paint, which I hadn't appreciated. But most of it's come off because where I worked with all the grease, putting these new shafts in, I used grease inside the tubes, and what I hadn't appreciated was the amount of grease that I must have got on various tools and probably the wire brush itself. So what I've done is scrubbed it down this morning, taken off anything loose, and I'm using this jet wash to clean it up afterwards. Puts lots of fairy liquid and hot water on it, and what's on there now is pretty stable. It survived the wire brush and the soapy water, so now let's see what survives the jet wash, and let's just see what happens. I don't mind too much. I mean, what I'm going to do next is paint it with grey vinegar. Anyway, I thought I'd just show you that, and you know, really to demonstrate that not everything goes to plan. Well, there you go. Anything that survived, any paint that survived that deserves to stay on, I reckon. I'm quite surprised at how well it has stayed on, to be honest with you, in places. And it's very obvious where the grease was, wasn't it? And how effective it was at keeping the paint off. So should have known better, really. Anyway, there you go. spoke to Jamie this afternoon about the bearing on this drive shaft that goes through here, and he persuaded me that the best thing to do was to take these bearings off. You know, the bearings that it sits in, they were riveted through here, but I've just ground the tops off. I'll show them in a minute actually. Ground the tops off, and then I was able to take them out, punch them out. I had to drill them as well and then take them out. So this whole drive shaft has come out now, because as he pointed out, what he has to do is drill out, or on the lathe cut out the hole in the bearing so that he can then put a decent sized sheave in it. It's got to have another 2 coats anyway of vinegar, so it's starting to look okay. And one thing that taking that shaft off did show is just how nicely the main shaft actually rotates now. This was all very stiff before. Randy's just doing a little bit of painting out here. I'm just about to put the rubbing strake in here, the metal rubbing strake. So that's my job. I've got the bit of rail out. There was a little bit needed grinding off from where they'd hooked it at in the tanks when they galvanised them. And I've drilled the holes out as well, because they get filled up with the galvanising material. So that's all drilled out and ready to go. Obviously I'll paint it again once it's in situ. There's no point in doing that now. So what I've got to do, I've got some putty here, some red lead putty, which I'm going to put on the back of it, and it's pretty straightforward. Then it goes straight onto the outside of the rubbing straight, the covering board, and then it's held in with these nails. So they go in there, look, and that'll be nailed through. So nice and simple. Catch you in a minute. Dan, but you're too high there. That's it. Hold it there. I mean, your end isn't critical at the moment. I can just get started up here. This, I'll get one. Get the first one in. come and hold this now. I've bent it up, so you should be able to hold it up. Hold it away from the wood. Use the post to hang on to. I do. Let's say I hate doing these jobs because I know how much effort went into, you know, putting these covering boards in, so it feels odd to then be hacking them about like this. There you go, that's more than enough now. Look, my hole cutter can now reach down and finish that job off, hopefully. Let's have a look, have a go. Try and do this without this thing catching my hand. Oh, gotcha. Et voila. Well, there's the good news. I haven't cut through anything else. That's a perfect fit. Look, it hasn't caught the outside, or rather the inside of the whole plank, so it's just missed that by 1/8 of an inch, so that's perfect positioning. And I haven't caught anything else. There's no other bolts or anything in there, and I've missed frames and everything else, so it's got a nice you know, it should breathe nicely there, so that's good. The position of that is in one of the crew berths, so that's perfect, and just outside the shower area as well, so a good place to vent really, to get an airflow. So there we go. I mean, the hole probably will want a little bit of jiggery pokery, because, you know, these pipes have been galvanized and painted, and I suspect the diameter is probably now another 1/8 of an inch thicker. So, but let's have a look. Well, it's going to, I think you can see now the benefit of the scupper, or the reason why we had to have the scupper. You can see this flange, you see, would have prevented, I wouldn't have been able to drop it like this, but I can now because we put the scupper in. Ah, it's nearly there. Yeah. You see a few bobbles here that could do with coming off. I'll put some coal galvanizing spray on that, but it have to come off because it was quite a big lump, and it's a shame to make the hole that much bigger just for that little bit there. So try again. Definitely fitting better, still not quite right. I'm afraid you missed the vent pipe going in because the battery weren't on the camera, but shortly after my last little bit of filming I did a little bit more sanding, not too much, and it dropped in quite nicely, so I can get it in and out now. But what I have here is a little issue, which is what I'd sort of guessed was going to happen, and that is that the plate doesn't sit down at the outside edge here. Look, you can see it's at an angle. Now, there's not a lot I could do about that as far as positioning the pipe is concerned, because the pipe has to be exactly, the hole has to be exactly in that position. Any further out and it will impinge on the hull plank, because that's right alongside the hull plank. Any further this way and it will start crossing over the seam there, so we don't want that. Even now it's pretty close, the screws there, that couldn't possibly come any further out, so the positioning as far as that is concerned is absolutely right. Now, given that the hole has to be there, and it has, therefore it's got to be upright, it wouldn't make any difference. I can't tip it, it would have to tilt further out for that to go flush, and obviously it can't because of the bulwarks. I've got a number of options. I could just put a bit of felt in there, but there is another option. Make a make a plinth for it to sit on, a base for it to sit on, which fits nice and snug with the deck, and then plane it so that it's also flush with the vent. So I think that's the best option. It's probably the one we're going to go for. Both of these holes, by the way, on both sides are behind the panelling here for the box berth. So there's one in each box berth, so it's perfect really. And it's venting the area between the internal panelling for that, which is fantastic. So it will circulate, you know, in behind where you really need it. So that's great. There we go, perfect. So now I've just got to make a base for it, which I will do. That's sitting there quite nicely, isn't it? So let's go and find myself a nice piece of wood. So there's the base that I've made for it. You can see it has to be angled down towards the inside, and then I've just taken the edges off, shaped them nicely, look, beveled the edges. Right, that's a good old mess. Let's see how that goes. What's the chances of getting this in without it getting on everything else? Oh, you should come to. You might as well see what sort of a mess we get into. So, good thing about the mastic, I suppose, it keeps it all together. And down she goes. So far so good. Right. I'm going to let that dry before I try to take the excessive mastic off, the excess mastic, because otherwise it will smear everywhere. Tomorrow morning it'll be cold, very cold in the morning, and I'll whip that off and then clean up. But I know it's a lot of excess, but it's better to have too much than too little. You know, if you've got it all bedded down and it nothing pushes out, you think, oh god, I haven't got enough. So yeah, that's fitted in there really nice. That will clean up nicely. It's really lovely, and the really pleased with that as well. It's worked out really nice. It's the other scupper with the little leather hinges.